behind me, over here on your left, is Hinkley A, which is now decommissioned. It's been decommissioned for some time now. Never produced more than 400 some odd megawatts, and all the nuclear spent fuel is still sitting in the facility. Over here we have Hinkley B, which has been operating for a number of decades now and is about to reach the end of its useful life. And good riddance, say I. And over here, where you don't see anything at all right now, is where the government is proposing the construction of Hinkley C, which will be 2 nuclear reactor facilities, not 1, which will be generating 3,200 megawatts of power, costing the taxpayer twice the going rate for electricity by 2025 if they build it to schedule. If they build it to the price point of £16 billion. So the reason why I'm here, Theo, is to find out a bit more about stopping the Hinkley C power plant from being built. You've got a website. That's how I found you. It's called Stop Hinkley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't want to see a nuclear power station in Somerset, a new one. My parents campaigned against nuclear, and I think in the 80s we all thought that nuclear was over in Britain.
Yeah.
But here it is coming back.
Yes. And everything was going along tickety-boo, and all of a sudden they decided to slip a new nuclear power plant in your backyard.
I don't think it was that sudden, but that was when I got engaged. And what we decided to do at that point was to try and get the nuclear debate opened, because in this country it had gone very quiet. Yeah. A lot of the environmentalists and the Green movement became, in my opinion, confused about the nuclear issue because nuclear was using the climate change argument to open doors. And
yeah, kind of co-opted the whole thing, didn't they?
Yeah, and the government wanted to be seen to be acting, and nuclear is the old approach, but one that looks and sounds very impressive. So
until you start looking at the front end and the back end of the whole proposition,
absolutely.
And the possibility of accidents, aka Fukushima or Chernobyl.
The problem has been that the nuclear industry very skillfully repositioned itself in the last 20 years.
Oh yeah, they're green.
And became this green option. And a lot of environmentalists who are so, quite rightly, so concerned about climate change and so clear that most people have no idea how serious this is going to get, that they want us to get off fossil fuels as an absolute bottom line. So therefore,
count me in. I'm all over that idea.
So therefore they say, well, it's the lesser of two evils. Meanwhile, in West Somerset, which is already got nuclear power stations, old ones, they're like, well, we've had them, so they're already a softer community for having more.
Right.
And
in other words, it hasn't blown up
people
yet.
are working there. It hasn't blown up yet, although there's quite a few little horror stories locally about things that have gone wrong. But
interesting.
But nonetheless, it's basically functioned, and it's going to create loads of jobs and all the rest of it. Now, most people, I think, just took this big propaganda barrage that came through the media. The county council, the local council, the government were all in collusion with it. They'd already decided it was going to be built. And
they were going to get lots of money.
The local representatives knew that the law had been changed so that the planning was going to go through regardless.
The law had been changed. Now explain that to me. Was there a law?
We used to have public inquiries.
Yeah,
the last time they
those.
tried to build a Hinkley C, there was a public inquiry.
Right, and they said no, thank you.
But this time, we've got a new process where they have a consultation, and at the end of the consultation, the inspectors, having heard what people say, then make a recommendation, and then the Secretary of State decides whether to agree with that. So basically, it all comes down at the end of the day to the Secretary of State will decide anyway.
Right.
They were going to build it anyway.
Well, but no, they're not going to build it, but they think they're going to build it.
We had the consultation, and we weren't allowed to raise the two main issues around a nuclear power station. The two things which couldn't be discussed were the danger of a nuclear accident and what was going to happen to the waste. We also couldn't
Wait a
discuss...
minute.
Interestingly enough, we
Wait a
also...
minute.
Tell me the third thing we couldn't discuss. The
There's
third
three.
thing... Yeah, the third thing we couldn't discuss was whether it made sense as an energy policy.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
They stopped you from actually having
we
a cogent
were.
argument, or a conversation
Totally.
about whether or not it was the best use of money.
Yeah. But we were allowed to discuss whether the road needed to be widened outside to Guernsey because of the lorries. So,
You got to be kidding.
we went through this whole process. We were allowed to... We questioned these things, but in the end they weren't. They were all said to be covered.
Sorry, can't
Because
discuss that.
The way it goes is, well, we've got regulatory bodies who cover this. We can trust them, so it's all right. And
We can trust them.
That's how
Are
it
these
went.
the same regulatory bodies that between 2002 and 2009, for 7 years, hid the fact that there were 1,750 mishaps, leaks, or accidents at the nuclear power plants in this country?
They are the same
Are those
bodies.
the same? Okay, I just
They are
wanted to
the
make
same
sure
bodies.
we're talking about the same body that
Yeah.
continues to keep secret information about
Yeah.
the problems with the
Yeah.
nuclear power industry in this country.
The problem with those bodies is, I mean, they're not malicious, but they have their sense of their purpose is to keep the industry working, not to just simply be completely objective and critical.
Yeah.
So that when Fukushima happened, for instance, we know, don't we, that there were, through email leaks, that the Department of Energy was in liaison with the nuclear industry saying, how can we spin this so that people don't turn against nuclear? You know?
Whereas in Germany, they had protests in every
Yeah,
major
yeah.
city of the country, and
Yeah.
the government said, "You know what? We think you're right about that, and
That's
we're gonna.
right.
We've heard the people, and being a democracy,
That's right.
we're going to listen to the people and do what they want, and therefore we're turning off the nuclear power plants."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't do that. They decided to
didn't do
find a way to spin the story
To spin the story
so that it became something different.
so that they could keep it on track. And to that, you know, Hinkley
Exactly.
C is being built on the edge of the second highest tidal range in the world.
Yes.
And it's obvious that with climate change and with the uncertainty now in the weather, you know, there's a real danger of flooding in the future.
Yes.
So that's one part of the picture. But the other thing is that in West Somerset, around the plant too, people are... They weren't publicly expressing their concerns because the kind of total media domination was it's a good thing. Plus, EDF have been required to give lots of money out. So the college has got some new premises, there's a new rugby club, all the rest of it.
They don't have to give that money back, do they?
No.
So we still don't have to build it, and they get all the money anyway?
I think so.
I like that.
So they basically kind of bribe the local community.
Yeah, so they're throwing
It's
bribe money
called
around.
mitigation, but in fact it's actually making
Bribes,
it
yeah.
harder for people to resist.